My name is Dan Finucane, and I'm currently a regent. I love folk music, blues music, and I love singing and playing with other people.
My name is Ian Peoples. I'm a Jesuit regent. I'm kind of a football fanatic. Most of my weekends are spent watching at least a few games. I'm probably one of the biggest Lionel Messi fans.
Hello and welcome back to MagisTalk. I'm your host, Dan Finucane, and I'm joined by my co-host and Jesuit brother, Ian Michael Peoples.
And today we are joined again by Father David Kiblinger. This is your third time on, right,
I believe so.
So it's great to have you on again. Just as a reminder, Father David is an associate pastor at St. Martin de Porres parish in Belize City. And yeah, he's here to talk to us today about the role of godparents. So we're excited to hear about that because you should know something about this for a few different reasons, but for one, you baptize a lot of babies, don't you?
Do a lot of baptisms, which is actually one of my favorite parts about being a priest. It was last week or the week before, I did a total of 26 baptisms in 1 week. So
26.
It's pretty good. I almost threw out my arm, but
just adding a bunch of members to the body of Christ.
Amen.
Do you think they're hands, feet, head? Well, there's only one head, but
yeah, probably. Let's not speculate.
Okay. Do you keep a tally in total? Do you have like a book of baptisms?
I actually do. I usually take a picture of the sheet. Well, I'm handed a sheet of the names of the children to be baptized. So I'll take a picture of it and make sure I keep a log of when they're baptized, and the idea is to pray for them.
So how many souls have you brought into the body of Christ for the glory of God?
It's a good question. I think I'm in the 60s or so now.
All right.
In a year, so a little over a year. That's not bad.
You're going to hit triple digits soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Now, I don't know if they probably haven't told you this, but when I become a general of an army in heaven, all the souls that I baptize will be at my disposal.
Wow! Okay, fight the good fight.
It's a joke, please.
Okay. I was going to say, I have some follow-up questions about what an army is doing in heaven, but anyway. Well, thanks for being here and joining us to talk about this topic, which actually was recommended by one of our viewers.
Okay.
So,
it's a great topic.
It's something, if you recommend something, we will put it on the show. So hopefully, sometimes.
If it's appropriate.
If it's appropriate. We want to start by just talking about the term godfather or godmother. What does the church mean when we use those terms?
The terms godfather and godmother, I mean, you can kind of break them apart, I guess, right? So father and mother, we know what father and mothers do. They nurture a young child, bring the child up in the world, educate the child. So that's part of godparenting, godmother and godfather. But then you have that part about God, right? So, we believe that all of us are living both our biological lives, but we have a spiritual life. And that doesn't, sometimes when we hear spiritual life, or maybe it's just me, it just doesn't ring the same way as life. But when we emphasize spiritual life, it's something that must be cared for, must be tended to, must be grown. And so the godfather and the godmother generally is the one that supports the newly baptized infant or an adult brought into the church, nurtures that spiritual life.
And you said that the church hasn't always used this term godparent. You said that before our episode started. So what is it? You said you used the term sponsor.
Yeah, so the practice, generally, if we look at the history of the early church, or at least as far as I've been able to read and understand, it wasn't, you didn't have grandparents passing the faith on to, their children, passing it then on to the grandchildren, and on down the line. Because you were literally, St. Paul was going around and founding churches and cities and bringing families in. Well, it still in the time when Christianity was under persecution in the Roman Empire, well, there was a lot of, I guess, say, skepticism or caution about people coming into the church and being part of the Christian community, because you didn't know if they had nefarious purposes in joining the group. Were they spies for the government? Were they infiltrating, right? And so usually this person who was a Christian was the one who vouched for the pagan that wanted to come into the church. And so this person would have been known to the community, would have been known to the bishop as someone being upstanding in their religious practice, knowing to be honest. And that would be the person that then said, all right, this person's all right. We can take a chance on this person and bring this person into the Christian community. So that was the sponsoring, kind of answering for the person who was inquiring into the church. That's the origin, at least, of this practice. And of course, as the church sort of faces new contexts, then the way that that relationship happens kind of morphs a little bit.
Yeah. So it sounds like kind of at the beginning, it's more like not a gatekeeper, but it's kind of making sure that people's intentions are pure, but it isn't so much about once somebody's in the church that then they're continuing with them. It's kind of like, no, they're part of the community, but it kind of evolves then to have a different.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things about coming into the early church was that it was a really arduous process of moral testing, of formation in the faith. And it wasn't like you could just go to Mass and kind of check things out. In fact, people weren't allowed to go to the Sunday celebration until after they were baptized at Easter. So there was kind of a protection of the mysteries. And so once people were baptized and brought into the church, then they went through this long period of kind of catechesis, basically, and faith formation into the mysteries that they had been initiated into. And so, they had a really, I guess, kind of robust, I'm sure it depended on the place, but really a robust sort of formation program that, we don't necessarily have today, right? You can't take the infant who's newly baptized and then educate them immediately in the faith.
Yeah. Would RCIA be attempting to do this kind of process for adults then? Yeah, so RCIA is the rite of Christian initiation of adults, and that was something that was restored and has been given a lot of emphasis now in the church, and especially since the Second Vatican Council, as this sort of trying to recover a process and a formation process of coming into the church. And so that's why if you do RCIA, you'll see this at different parishes. I've run RCIA at some parishes in the U.S., and so people who aren't baptized will only stay for the first part of the Mass, for the liturgy of the Word, but then they're dismissed so that they don't participate in the Eucharist. And that's kind of a little bit of a recovery of this process of kind of protecting the mysteries until you're initiated into it. Because remember, our coming to faith is not like we know everything first and decide to do something with full knowledge. No, often we're drawn by desire to enter the church or participate in the sacraments, whatever, and then we come to a deeper understanding of things.
And to that point, recently we were in Bermudian Landing, Father David and I, giving a weekend revival, so doing some catechetical stuff. And you mentioned during one of our faith formation sessions that you said, I only know 10% probably of the faith, you know, and you have multiple degrees with regards to theology and philosophy, and yet you say you only know maybe 10%, and I know maybe 2%, you know, but because our faith is so rich, and there's thousands of years of intellectual, spiritual formation and tradition, so it's always an invitation deeper into the mystery, right? That we're never going to kind of reach it until we, you know, are looking at God face to face, which is a beautiful thing.
Right. And I even mentioned, like, not even Pope Francis himself knows knows the whole faith. That's why he's got a whole bunch of theological advisors that are working with him. And so, it's just a sort of call that everyone can keep undergoing faith formation.
And ideally, godparents are aiding in that process, especially as kids are coming up.
Oh, yeah.
I would say. Yeah. Well, I think you already answered this, but you answered why the church needed a sponsor in the early church. But why does the church require a godparent or a sponsor, as you say, now? And do they, and why, if so?
Yes. So now, when you're baptized and confirmed, you need a sponsor. It only has to be one male or one female, or one male and one female. So that's a necessary requirement in the church. And then there's certain requirements in addition. It's not just, you know, anybody that you want that can be a godparent. It's got to be someone who is at least 16 years of age, according to our canon law of the church. But even more importantly, someone who is fully initiated into the Catholic Church. So someone who has been confirmed, someone who has taken First Communion, and generally someone who lives out the faith well, someone who's active in the church. Someone who knows the prayers, can educate the child, someone who abides by the marriage law of the church. So it's got to be really a Catholic that's in good standing, that can be a parent or a godparent. And of course, I mean, that makes perfect sense, right? You don't want a teacher that's ignorant of the subject to be teaching a child. You want someone who already has a storehouse of knowledge, and in this case, you know, virtue, in order to be able to educate a child in the faith.
And this question kind of builds on that. And you know, what should parents look for then in choosing godparents? Because I know here in Belize, I've heard it talked about that, you know, if something happens to the parents, that the godparents take over, or at least play a part in raising the child. Like it has a really big significance, at least for some families. But in addition to that, and what you just said, like, what should parents look for when they're discerning this decision?
Yeah, I think you're right that there can be a lot of maybe not necessarily bad, but ulterior motives in choosing godparents. You know, maybe the rich uncle or something can be a godparent in hope that the rich uncle gives, you know, good gifts and things. That in and of itself is not a bad thing, but that's not the primary purpose of a godparent. You know, the godparent is the one that is able to commit to providing spiritual support for the person. So someone who, even if they're not physically in the same area, someone that you know will pray for your child, right? Someone that will be willing to be in your child's life. If nothing else, again, maybe not physically present, although being physically present would be ideal, but at least spiritually present through prayer, through, you know, notes of encouragement, through maybe not expensive gifts, but you know, getting a Bible or getting a rosary or getting you know, things to mark the sacraments for the child, and just encouraging that spiritual support.
Yeah, and what advice would you have for godparents as they take on their new role?
I would say form habits, form traditions, in the sense of, say, I'm going to commit to every year, maybe on the anniversary of baptism, writing my godchild a note kind of reminding them of baptism. I'm going to commit to maybe having a conversation with the godchild, say every month, every 2 months. I'll commit to doing some sort of spiritual practice for the godchild. And, having at least some of those things where you're really, you're living out a vocation of being a godparent. So kind of put those things in order before the person is baptized.
So yeah, really taking this thing seriously, that it's not just a title that you get just as a sign of, that you have a good relationship with their mom or dad, but that you're actually going to embrace the role of being a father or a mother in the faith, so to speak. That's really good.
And on that note, I mean, I was reflecting a little bit on on this topic of godparents, and something that I kind of noticed is that, I was ordained last summer, so I'm still, a padrecito, a little, pretty new in this thing. And one thing that has been maybe a challenge, a blessing, an opportunity is growing in this notion of being a spiritual father to people who are under my care. And so I was thinking that godparents, in a way, like if y'all want to be maybe, priests in a sense, I mean, that's literally what a godparent is. So a Catholic priest, a father, is a spiritual father for a community. Well, a godparent, a godfather, a godmother may not have spiritual care for a whole community, but has spiritual care for, this person that they've committed to supporting. And that's a big vocation. That's a big task to take on.
And it seems like it's a way of exercising, one's baptism.
Correct.
Baptized as priest, prophet, and king. And
exactly.
So it's a particular way of exercising that priesthood.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. So, I mean, just to reiterate, all of us, every baptized Christian is baptized into the priesthood, the prophecy, the kingship of Jesus Christ. And so called to offer sacrifices and to teach, especially. And so this is a really nice, I like that connection that you make, a really nice aspect of, or way of living out that call that all Christians have in baptism.
So our penultimate question is kind of a sad one for Ian and I, because we I don't know my godparents, and we're talking about kind of the ideal situation, right? Where you pick somebody or a couple people that are they're well suited for the role, but for us, we don't know our godparents. They were I think mine were there maybe at the beginning, but haven't been in touch in years. So what if somebody doesn't know their godparents? What if they were watching and they're like, I don't know. Can you replace your godparents? Can you find other people? What would you... We're really just asking for us.
I'm really sorry, but
some consolation.
I gotta break it to you. Y'all are just lost causes.
At least we have each other.
No, the good thing is, I mean, just like unfortunately, when, for under tragic circumstances, a father or a mother is unable to care for the child anymore, other people step in, right? That's a great thing about being Catholic, right? That we're constantly praying for one another, or at least we should be praying for one another. And so having that sort of spiritual support, spiritual friendship is a good thing. Having a friend where you're really confident that they're praying for you is a good support. And really for us Jesuits, it's a real blessing. I mean, clearly you all are have many means of spiritual support other than your godparents. Let me say, maybe your godparents are praying for you. I don't know, even if you don't know them. So maybe they are still fulfilling that role.
I hope I at least cross their mind every now and then.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. Just to remember that we are a community of believers, that we're a faith that really takes seriously, that we're a body of Christ, right? That we're talking about with baptism, that we are unified with a real body, a mystical body, that so we have that support from one another. Our last question, of course, all of us will answer. You, to preface that, are you a godparent yourself? Are you a godfather?
I am not a godfather.
Not a godfather.
I know,
Wow.
so I'm not speaking from experience.
Not speaking from experience. And Dan, are you a godfather?
I have one godchild, John. So if he sees this, hi, John.
He's praying for you, John.
I am right now.
I have two godchildren, my sister's two daughters. So this, I'm curious about this, right? I'm also an uncle. I'm also a godfather and uncle. So, but the question is, do gifts godparents get for their godchildren have to be religious? If so, why or why not? So, do the gifts we get our godchildren have to be religious? Why or why not?
I would say no. I don't know. I
Stumped you.
Yeah, I was like, no. I'm just thinking of my own godparents. No, they were the godparents that were really good about getting me something for birthday, something for Christmas. Usually something fun, something that kids like. It's not, again, the spiritual and the sort of temporal, the earthly. They're not in conflict, necessarily, right?
Okay.
So we're like a both and people.
Great.
Spiritual gifts and nice gifts, like fun gifts.
Dan, what's your take on this?
I think I'd have to agree, Father David here. So my brother's godmother has been very present to him, which does not create any envy in me. But she's been very good at getting him gifts for, I think, his birthday. I don't know about Christmas. And it's probably who she is, but she gives very thoughtful gifts. She was an English teacher, and so she would often do books or something. So, I do maybe something that's maybe a little more thoughtful, but I don't know that it necessarily has to be religious. Like, a volume of a patristic author every year to create a collection. Although maybe some would like that.
Oh,
I don't know.
That doesn't sound like a bad idea.
Yeah, that sounds great.
But we're nerds, so I don't know. But yeah, Ian, what do you think?
As a godfather, I felt obligated to make the gifts. I get my nieces religious. Funny story, this past Christmas, I wanted to get her a gift for Christmas, and I decided I was going to get this really nice children's Bible. It's the full Bible, but it's illustrated and it has things for kids, and it's really beautiful. And then I got her like a prayer book, so 2 books, My niece is 5. And I told her like about 2 months in advance, I got you a Christmas present, and a birthday present, kind of all rolled into one. I was like, get ready, and so she's all excited. And so I get there, the day after Christmas is when I see her, and she's all excited. She gets the present, it's heavy, and she goes to tear it open. She opens it and she sits back. And then she looks up at me and says, "Did you get me anything else?" She was not excited about the big books, but hopefully as time goes on, she'll come to appreciate them more. Yeah. So,
can I tell you about the best gift my godparents have given me?
Please
do.
Well, as I say, growing up, they would give me a lot of just fun things, toy things, like fun gifts. But when I was ordained last summer, my godmother and godfather paid for the reception that I had after my first Mass. at their home parish, at the parish that my mom and my uncle, who is my godfather, grew up in. And so they had it all set up. They did all the planning and decorating and getting food and cleaning up, and it was just a great gift.
That is wonderful. Yeah, to sort of, I'm sure they've been praying for you all these years, and to see this godchild of theirs becoming a priest, and I'm sure that's a great gift for them.
Yeah,
I
think so.
Well, we hope this episode has helped you think about maybe your role as a godparent, or maybe how to choose godparents for your kids in the future, or for your grandkids to help along with that process. Again, if you have any ideas for our show, let us know either in person, or if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube and you want to leave a comment, we'll check that out. And we got 6 more episodes to fill in. So our time is coming to a close.
That's right.
Father David, thanks again for being with us today.
Of course. Thanks for the invitation.
Definitely.
All right. Well, God bless y'all, and I hope you're having a blessed Easter.